what's up? Unfortunately, perfectly buttery and flaky biscuits don't happen on accident. Behind every single one is a lot of technique and attention to detail. In this video, I'm gonna show you the 6 techniques that I think are essential to make perfectly flaky biscuits every time. Of course, every flaky biscuit starts with butter. I've got a ½ pound of it here, and it's frozen solid. More on why in just a second. Specifically, this is a European style butter called plugra. Euro butter has a higher fat, lower water content than regular butter, and butter with more water hydrates the flour better, creating stronger gluten. Too much gluten and we get a tough biscuit that doesn't have any flakiness. Technique 1, use high fat butter. Now to get this butter ready for the biscuit, I'm gonna grate it on the largest hold sides of my box grater. Like I mentioned a second ago, this butter is frozen solid, and that makes it easy to shred into clean, separate flakes. If incorporated into the flour properly, those clean butter flakes will melt elegantly when baked and be the catalyst for tender flakiness. Technique 2, shred your butter, and technique 3, keep it cold AFP. Once I've got 2 pounds of butter grated, I'll set it aside and then grab a medium bowl. Into that goes 425 grams of all-purpose flour, 8 grams of salt, 15 grams of sugar, 15 grams of baking powder, and 3 grams of baking soda. I use both soda and powder here so that I can get the maximum loft on these in the oven. Now, a quick stir to combine, and then in goes all of my frozen butter. Get in there, dude. From there, I'll come back and crumble those butter flakes in with the flour. Try to do this step as quickly as possible because your body heat will start to warm the butter. Warm butter smears into the flour and hydrates it, creating gluten, and gluten bad. At this point, I'm just looking to get this butter evenly coated with flour and to crumble it down into a gravelly texture. And that looks good. Next, I'm gonna grab 300 grams of buttermilk and start to drizzle it in while stirring to prevent lumpiness in any one area. I always use buttermilk over reg milk because its extra acidity helps supercharge the leavening, making uber tall biscuits, and because buttermilk tastes amazing. Technique 4, use acidity. By the way, sour cream mixed into regular milk would work totally fine if you can't find buttermilk. Next, I'm gonna flour my board liberally, spread that out, and then flip out my pile of barely hydrated butter flour. Next, I'll come back and smush this into something that's a little bit more cohesive. The buttermilk still hasn't gripped onto all the flour yet, so it's gonna go from a powdery mess into a slightly less powdery mess that's kind of in the shape of a rectangle. Next, I'm gonna grab my rolling pin and roll this to get it into the ballpark of 18 inches long. From there, I'm gonna give this dough its first of 5 book-style folds. That means grabbing the top third of the dough, folding it over the middle third, and then grabbing the bottom third and folding that over those 2 layers. Once that's smushed together, I'll turn it 90 degrees and then start to roll it in the direction of 18 inches one more time. And there we go. Time for book style fold number 2. And if you've been on this channel for a while, you'll remember this technique kind of resembles the lamination technique that I used in both my croissant and Danish videos. Lamination is essentially the process of layering butter inside of a pastry dough. Every fold multiplies the number of layers that we have, and when we bake it, that butter will melt, giving us that signature layered flaky look that we're shooting for. Technique 5, laminate your biscuits like a croissant. After fold 2, I'll turn this 90 degrees one more time and then flip the dough over so that the shaggier, wetter side is now facing up. Another 18-inch rollout for round 3, and this time I'll give you a point of view perspective to see what this book fold looks like up close. The top third goes to the middle third, and then the bottom third gets just shove that back in there. The bottom third gets folded over both of those layers. I'll turn it 90 degrees and then roll it and fold it 2 more times. By round 4, you can see that this biscuit dough is really starting to look like a proper pastry. And for round 5, I'll give it a fresh coat of flour and roll one more time to about 18 inches and then give it the last set of folds. I'll pound that to seal things up a little bit, hit it with some fresh flour, and then flip it over so that the folds are sitting on the bottom. Then I'll grab my rolling pin and give this dough a little bit of pounding to seal it up and flatten it out. At this point, the dough is getting quite tight and the butter is starting to warm up. So just as if this were a croissant dough, I'm gonna throw it into the fridge for about 10 minutes to firm up the butter and let the gluten relax so that I can roll it out. While that rests, let me quickly thank the sponsor of this video, Eboost. I first heard of Eboost when it randomly showed up at my door a few months ago. I had just gotten home from traveling from Korea and I was super jet lagged, so, you know, I cracked one open. Normally, I don't mess with energy drinks because they kind of scare me with all of their synthetic caffeine and loads of sugar or artificial sweeteners, but this label reads super clean. It's got natural caffeine from green coffee seed and green tea, vitamins and minerals like C, D, B, and zinc. It's got electrolytes, antioxidants. It's also got nootropics like L-tyrosine and L-theanine, and there's no artificial flavors, colors, or sweetness, and only 1 to 2 grams of sugar per can. The vitamins and natural caffeine support energy and focus, and so far haven't made me feel weird or jittery like coffee does. And shout out to the ginger lime flavor, by the way. It's just delicious and mega refreshing. So to try Eboost, click the link in my description and use code BrianL to get 30% off site-wide at eboost.com, or visit your local CVS nationwide. They tell me that this 30% off deal literally never happens, and this is their best deal ever. So make sure to get on it while you still can. 10 minutes later, my biscuit dough is quite a bit more relaxed and the butter is mucho cold once again. Now to roll this out, I'm gonna set it up on a floured surface and give it a slow but firm rolling with my pin. The final shape that we're going for is a square, so we wanna spread this evenly on both sides. I'll give this a quick 90-degree turn to get it spread out the other way, and I'll keep on rolling. There really isn't much to say about this step other than try your best to keep it evenly thick and work quickly so that the butter stays cold. And once I've got this rolled into a roughly 10-inch square like this, it's time to cut it up. For that, I've got a bench scraper here, but a knife would also work, and I'm gonna dunk it into some flour to get it liberally dusted up. This is going to enable super clean cuts. If you smear the butter when you cut it, you'll lose that beautiful, craggy, flaky edge that we're looking for. Next, I'll clean up the other 3 sides, and then I'm gonna carefully cut this biscuit dough into 9 roughly even squares. Squares over circles because we put a lot of time and attention into getting this dough right, and cutting rounds creates a bunch of trim that need to be re-rolled. The butter in that trim gets smeared as it gets re-rolled, and that means at least half of our biscuits would be far from perfect. Squares are more efficient, and the eating experience is exactly the same as rounds. And once these are cut into 9 pretty even squares like this, I'm gonna move them over to a parchment paper lined sheet tray, and then I'll preheat my oven to 400F. While that gets hot, I'm gonna protect the temperature of the butter in these biscuits by moving them over to the freezer to get them even colder. This is the final technique that I use to create supreme flakiness. Number 6, freeze the biscuits and then bake them hot. 20 minutes later, these biscuits are ready to party. The last thing I need to do before I bake them is to brush the top liberally with some melted butter. This is gonna help fry the biscuits on top and will create some extra crispiness that enhances the brittle flakiness of the inside. Next, I'll load these into my 400F oven and bake them for 20 to 24 minutes. Cut to one of the most satisfying time lapses that I've ever captured on this channel. You can see the flakiness created in real time. So sick. Halfway through, I'll come back and turn the tray, and then I'll keep on baking for 10 to 12 more minutes. And after about 21 to 22 minutes in total, it's time to take these out. And wow, color-wise, this is the sweet spot. Any darker than this and the biscuits would start to dry out. And look at that flakiness. Oh my Lord. That's layer upon freaking layer of flakes going on. Can I get a layer? Now, while these cool, let's take a quick look at a batch of biscuits that I made with room temperature butter. As you can see, it's still flaky looking, but astonishingly flat. Cut to a biscuit that was baked with frozen butter, and you get the point. You guys, these biscuits have like 9 subtly different types of crunchiness going on. There's a warmth to the butter flavor here that makes you feel hugged by the person that you love the most, and the inside is soft but not gummy. It's just amazing and has made me stoked on biscuits in general. I hope that all 6 of these techniques make it into your next attempt and that you make extremely flaky biscuits. Let me know in the comments if you do. Let's eat this thing. If you like this video, maybe check out my breakfast sandwich 2 ways vid where I make my favorite 5-minute breakfast sandwich and I show you how to make English muffins from scratch. See you in the next one.